David, we know that you've been working with your team over the documentary, a very unusual documentary which is critically important for all the world to see right now and to know real truth about history of Ukraine. It's called Ukraine Was Before Russia. Could you share with all the viewers what motivated you to start this substantial work and to show the audience the deep history of Ukraine, the fact that Ukrainians have been independent in their souls and minds, and they attempted to get real independence for centuries, unfortunately often were suppressed by Russian Empire and others. But can you share us what was in your heart when you started this work?
Well, I think it was started because, yes, we were in Lviv and we were shown a lot of the history, because in the West, virtually nobody studies and knows the real true history of the Ukraine. You can't cover the whole of history, but certainly I know that particularly while Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, people did not see the history. And we realized that in Russia, arguing that Ukraine always has been part of Russia, of the Soviet Union, it's totally incorrect. And it was quite shocking to realize that Ukraine existed 700 years before Russia. And of course, at one time, Kiev was the capital of Russia before it was finally moved to Moscow. And what we can see is that you have a history, you have a language, you have a culture which was not Russian. Because as one Russian admitted to me many years ago, that we misunderstand Russia in that Russia is not so much European. A large part of Russia is Asian. And it's the fact that you have in Russia an Asian mentality, going back to the Mongols, going back and all the wars fought, and so on, and going back to the history of the Cossacks and all those things. I know a bit about that history. But Ukraine was never part of that. Ukraine was always part of the European side. And Ukraine is much more of a European nation than Russia. And so we needed to produce a documentary because people don't know, they don't understand. And unless we show it, it's like the film that we produced 20 years ago, The Rape of Europe. People didn't understand why there was a problem with Europe. And so in the documentary we showed it, and I do believe that our film was instrumental in the bridging the difference and turning the vote in favor of Brexit, because it was very close. And actually, after we produced the film, I was speaking both in Parliament, and I asked people, had they seen the film The Rape of Europe? The majority of people had. And so there's no question it did influence people. And I believe the film, this documentary that we produced, will influence people to support you even more strongly in the Ukraine, when they understand, as your history, you belong to Europe, not to Russia.